Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for tuning back in. This is part 2 of my story. I don't know how many videos there are going to be of this. I'm kind of talking about, over 7 or 8 years ago. There might be quite a few. Things all happen kind of pretty quickly once I get into it. So, it shouldn't. Hopefully there won't be too many. But anyway, the last time, in the last video, we spoke about me going to Australia, booking a one-way ticket, getting out there, having a working holiday visa that would allow me to be there for a year, running out of accommodation, buying a van, and that's where we're up to. So I just bought a camper van off of a guy that was leaving Australia, and my time in Wake Up Hostel in Sydney had come to an end. A few people had moved on, were doing various different backpacking things, and my friend that had come to meet me went back to Melbourne, and I had the van. So that's where we're up to. I spent a few days hanging around Coogee Beach. I walked. There's a fantastic coast path that takes you from Coogee. Actually, takes you from a beach further south of Coogee and takes you all the way through to Bondi Beach, which was really cool. And I did that a couple of times while I was in the van, and it was great to do the walk. There are loads of fantastic beaches and bays and coves and things along the way, but I didn't like Bondi. Just found it quite overrun, very touristy. It is one of the most famous beaches in the world, so you do expect it to be like that. Didn't particularly like the people around there. I found they were all a bit kind of show-offy. It's not really my scene, unfortunately. The guys all thought a bit too much of themselves. I thought, kind of like bodybuilders on the beach, and the women didn't really want to be spoken to by a scrawny pasty Brit. So I didn't really enjoy Bondi that much. But that was fine. There were plenty of other awesome spots that I could go to. So I just didn't bother with it that much. Anyway, I looked up my cousin that lives down there. He's got a wife and a couple of kids, and I said, "Hey, I'm here." We had spoken a little bit before I got out to Australia, but I sent a message that said, "Hey, I'm here," and they invited me around for a barbecue, so I went and met them, and I think I stayed. I can't remember now if I stayed in their house or if I stayed in the van on the street, but either way, I went to meet them and had a couple of beers, had a barbecue, and hung out with them. And I got up the next morning, and from our conversation, we had been talking about Melbourne and the route from Sydney to Melbourne, and the fact that there was like a couple of ways you could do it, but the one that my cousin did very often was the Hume Highway. It basically takes you from Sydney all the way down to Melbourne. It was about a 10-hour drive or a 12-hour drive or something, but very straightforward. And I got up in the morning and I said, "Hey, I think I'm going to drive to Melbourne. I'm kind of inspired to go to Melbourne." And I knew I wanted to see it. It's a very artsy. It's like the artsy capital of Australia, as far as I'm concerned. Lots of music comes out of there. The Cat Empire, who's one of probably my favourite band of today. They're based in Melbourne. One of my dreams was to see Cat Empire play in Australia. In Melbourne would be amazing, but definitely in Australia. And lots of cool coffee shops, and it just looked really awesome. It got the MCG there, could watch some cricket. The Ashes was going at the time, so I was going to go and watch England play Australia. And so I just decided I was going to do this drive. So I basically got in the van, fueled it up, and drove. And I did it in the day, so I didn't even I stopped for pit stops or whatever, but I just did it in one day. Drove down to Melbourne, and my mate was there. My mate who had met me at the airport when I landed in Australia, he was back in Melbourne working. So I phoned him on the way and said, "Hey, I'm coming to Melbourne." He said, "Sweet. I'm not around for a couple of days, but come and see me. You can stay on the sofa or whatever when I'm back." So I drove down, and Melbourne was everything I hoped it would be. It was absolutely fantastic. I drove down there and spent a couple of nights just in the van. I think it's St Kilda Beach, and then on streetways and stuff, and just kind of stealth camped it a couple of times until Mark got back and I could go and stay with him. And yeah, it was really cool. I loved Melbourne. I booked myself a ticket to see the Ashes. I went to Millennium Square, which is in the centre of Melbourne district, and watched the cricket on the big screen, and then got a ticket and went to the MCG and watched the Boxing Day test, which was really cool. And do you know what, actually, I think that was a different trip. Basically, in December, I travelled. I went to Melbourne and back to Sydney a couple of times, and I really loved it. It was a good drive, but a long drive, but I did it a couple of times. And that's right, yeah. So I went and stayed with Mark for a couple of nights, and hadn't been to the cricket yet. Sorry, getting myself confused. I hadn't been to the cricket yet, but I hung out with him. Went to Queen Victoria Markets, I think it's called. And just spent some cool time around there. And then I decided that I wanted to try and be in Sydney for New Year's. That's right. I decided I wanted to be there for New Year's, and Mark's landlord had said, this guy can't stay with you anymore, or this van that's on the driveway needs to move, or something like that. So I was going to go and do the Great Ocean Road, which is a road down the bottom of Australia out of Melbourne, out towards Geelong and that kind of area, and it's one of the top sort of visitor backpacky things to do. So I was going to go and do that, and that was my plan. And then I got up, I think on Christmas Eve, and I realised that if I did that, it wasn't leaving me with very much budget. I think I can't really remember. I didn't have a huge budget left in the bank account. I was getting a bit nervous about continually doing stuff, spending more and more money, and not being able to like fuel the van and stuff. Anyway, because the van took a massive hit out of my bank balance. That's right. So anyway, so I decided I wanted to be in New Year's in Sydney for New Year's Eve, and so I drove back on Christmas Eve from Melbourne to Sydney, and I didn't have anywhere to stay apart from in the van. So I parked the van up again at Coogee Beach, and I remember this really clearly. I was driving through Sydney Tunnel, which takes you under the river from one side to the other and takes you out. You can either do Sydney Harbour Bridge. I remember I was driving through the tunnel and I just burst into tears. I mean, I was exhausted. I had driven for like 10, 12 hours or something, and pretty much non-stop, I think, that one. And anyway, I was exhausted and I was starting to feel a little bit homesick and a bit scared. And I realised, it was Christmas. I didn't have anyone to spend Christmas Day with. And I just burst into tears, and I drove all the way. I drove from Sydney out to Coogee just in tears, floods of tears. And I think I phoned my parents, or had a chat with people and tried to make myself feel better. But I was really quite upset about being on my own for Christmas. Anyway, I went to sleep. When I woke up Christmas Day, Christmas Day, I woke up and I had a message on my phone from a guy who I had met in the hostel, who had gone off and done his own thing, and he said, "Hey man, I don't know if you've got any plans, but I'm having a Christmas Day swim on Bondi Beach this morning with my girlfriend. If you want to come and join us. It'd be cool to see you." And I was like, "Oh, brilliant! Like, that's perfect. I didn't have anyone to spend Christmas with, and now, this new friend has invited me to come and see him and go for a swim." And I thought, that's just what I need, So I walked from Coogee to Bondi, and I met them on the beach, and we went and had a swim, And they said, what are you doing for the day? And I said, I've got no plans. And they said, cool, come and have breakfast with us. We're staying in this flat. The guy was English, and the flat that they were in was rented by a few Brits that were, I think, Australian citizens, at least residents. Anyway, they said, come and have breakfast with us and meet these people that we're staying with. And I said, yeah, okay, cool, that sounds great. So that's what we did. I went and had breakfast at their flat, and I met their housemates, and they said, what are you doing for Christmas dinner? And I was like, I don't have any plans, I'm not doing anything, I'm just going to go back to the van, and have probably a small barbecue on my own. And they said, you can't do that, that's ridiculous, stay with us, have Christmas dinner with us. And we've got all the stuff coming in, we're going to do like a traditional English Christmas dinner, because they're all English and missing Christmas and missing an English Christmas. They said, stay with us and have Christmas dinner. There's more than enough food and drink, and you can kip on the sofa and go back to the van tomorrow. And I said, okay, great, sounds awesome. So that's what I did, and we had a blast. And we again, those people that I met, I'm still friends with them now. I still have them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, and we every now and then we check in with each other, and that's a really beautiful thing about traveling. So I guess this was the first point that I realized that sometimes it's really, really scary to put yourself in these situations. I mean, I was absolutely terrified driving back to be on my own. Even though it's not like the worst thing in the world, it just feels awful at times. And when you start to get homesick and you're missing people and you end up, with that lonely sensation, it can be really difficult, really tough. And it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. You should reach out. You should reach out and speak to people and let them know how you're feeling. You're feeling, sad and lonely. But you can do that, and still you just want company. And by all of a sudden, this person was like, just kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it at all when they reached out and said, come and have Christmas with us, and man, it just materialized into one of the most fun Christmases I've had in Australia. I still think of it fondly. Every year photos pop up on my Facebook that remind me of that Christmas dinner that I shared with these strangers. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience, and if I had not thrown myself into something that was well outside of my comfort zone, it would never have happened. So you have to embrace all your experiences and just go for it, and take up opportunities when they arise, because it can lead to something really quite special. So that's where I'm going to leave this video. That's kind of the second installment. Coming up is me selling the van and doing some ridiculous trips in order. Sorry, someone just walking right past my pitch. So coming up will be the story of me selling the van, moving up to stay with a friend in Brisbane, and then moving up to Townsville, where we talk about getting the second year visa. So thanks so much for watching again. Sorry about the distraction, but that's how it rolls when you're on a public campsite. Anyway, I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks for watching.